Hello everyone, I'm Lucky Bucky. On the same couch about 6 years ago I made a video and I said, I'm Lucky Bucky, all that stuff. So anyways, I haven't made a video in a while. And the reason why, well, I haven't made a video for this channel in a while. And the reason why is because I've been extremely busy, and I will get into all that in future posts and future videos. I just don't want to go over it right now. Because I need to tell you about my life story. And let me zoom in, because my life story is very different, and it's led me to some improbable circumstances, and I've accomplished a lot in my life, but because I had a hard life when I was growing up, that was part of the reason why that I am successful today. And I'm happy to say that my dad abandoning me when I was 11 years old was the best thing that happened to me. Seriously. Now, it's kind of against the grain, what I just said, because most people believe you need to be in a loving family. Mom and dad love each other, they love you. And that's the typical, way of growing up, the way that you envision. Some people actually get that type of environment. But yeah, I didn't have that type of environment. My environment was a lot different. Where I left off in my life story on this channel was I talked about, the bear, I talked about the devil and just different things. And when I was living in Beluga, Alaska up until about age 6.5, I had some really interesting experiences that I want to tell you about. That it's just really crazy things that's happened. When I lived out in that bush though, I do believe I suffered a concussion when I was around 4 years old. My brothers and I were behind the snow machine, and we had 4 orange sleds with the ropes all tied up. You know what those look like, if you understand what I'm saying. So we were going around out in this field area by the house, and I was on the right hand side of all 4 sleds, and we were going around counterclockwise. And all the sleds, of course, would push me around the corner, and I smacked my head right into a tree. And I got up, and I knew that I had been hurt, of course, because my brain hurt, my head hurt pretty bad, and I don't think it was a small hit. And that was my first ever concussion. And I remember walking into the house and telling my mom, hey, I hit my head, and told her how, but she's like, oh, it'd be okay, Around that same age, I was really proud of my Superman costume, my pajamas. I had the red cape and everything. And I remember climbing up to the top of the stairs in the loft in the cabin we lived in, and I did the Superman kind of thing, and then I was holding onto the ladder, but I accidentally didn't catch myself. I was reaching for it, and I fell off the top of that, about 10 feet, landed on my right arm. My mom used an ace bandage and called it a day. And that was basically it. I don't think I broke my arm, but it did hurt for a while. And I think I just sprained it really bad. So I've had some injuries and some things that's happened to me at a very young age that, kids go through spills and stuff like that. However, when we were at the 4th of July, we're out at the beach. I might have told this before, it's been a few years, but I remember my dad grabbing me by the pants and the shirt and acting like he was gonna throw me off a cliff, a literal cliff. And the cliff was probably a few hundred feet up, at least. And I was screaming, pleading for my life and hoping my dad wouldn't just let go. And so I was traumatized as a child because of him and the things that he would do. So when we moved out of that area of Beluga, Alaska, my neighbors were the Van Meters, and Dusty Van Meter won the Iron Dog. Look his name up and you'll see Dusty Van Meter, and they can absolutely, concur that we killed that bear and brought it over with chains to his house. So at 7 years old, I go to school, and I go to an elementary school in a small town, and I'm gonna name the small town just so you know. It's named Soldatna, which is Russian for soldier. And we moved to this small town. We lived 5 miles outside the town. We had the highest house on the hill. My dad was making very good money, And with him making such good money, we were able to afford a lot of nice things. And I believe he saved a lot of the money when we were out living in the Alaskan bush for those years to turn around and buy the house we bought. And so we bought the highest house on the hill, 5 miles outside the town of Soldotna. And basically, living in that house was a dream. It was, I think, living conditions, it was the best I've ever had in my life to this day. I have my own house right now, but you know, I think just being young and being in a big house like I felt like it was magical. So that was the good thing. The house was nice, okay? My older brothers, still love them. They would pick on me, you know, and that was just part of the brotherly love, and I could identify that. However, when I went to school, my first grade teacher decided to do the name game song in the very beginning of the school year. And back then, my name wasn't Corey. I didn't go by Corey. I went by Bucky. And that's why this channel is called Lucky Bucky. And so what happened was, the teacher said, okay everyone, we're gonna do the name game song. And she chose Mary as the first person. And I know Mary, still know her to this day. And she goes, all right, here we go. Mary, Mary, Bavary, fee, fa, fo, fairy, Mary. And she goes, I'm the next person in line. So she goes, Bucky, Bucky, fo, oh, let's not use your name today. And so when she said that, all the kids laughed at my name. And when they laughed at my name, I took it personally. But it wasn't just that. It was the fact that it was something to pick on somebody about. And because I lived out in the middle of the woods for those 6 years, I was so extremely shy. Shyer than most people realize. The shyest kid probably in the school, or one of the shyest. Okay? I was very observant. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. So what would happen is I'd watch other kids that would get picked on, and I got picked on. But this didn't just last for like a week or 2 or 3 or 6 months or a year. This lasted for 8 years. And there was 10 bullies. By the time I got to some higher grades, it just got worse. Let's pause on the bullying just a little bit. Let's go back to when I was 7. So when I was 7 years old, I was learning how to tie my shoes, ride a bike, and also swim. And what I was doing, the riding the bike part, we lived in that house on the hill. My brothers were going off of a jump. And I went off the jump and I landed on the bar. You know how that feels. And after that happened, I didn't want to ride the bike. So I waited about 2 weeks and then finally got back on the bike. So I was riding down the hill and I crashed. And once I crashed, I had no helmet on. I got up and I had to get the confidence again to get back on that bike. And then what I did was I waited another couple weeks. I just waited until I felt comfortable. So I get on the bike and I start heading down the hill. And it's a pretty big hill, guys. It really is. It winds around. And so when you start top of the hill, it goes down, then it goes around, and keeps going around, and it keeps going around. And eventually you get down to this road down here. And that right there is about a quarter to a half a mile already. Okay? So I am riding my bicycle, and I'm going past the crash site where I crashed. And I'm like, whew, I made it. So I keep going, and I pass my neighbors, and I wave. No one's there, I still wave anyway. And as I turn around on my bicycle, I see something that scares the living daylights out of me. What I see is a bear and a moose fighting on their hind legs. And it's at the bottom of that road. And I hit the brakes. And back then you didn't have as much handle brakes, you had the pedal brake. So I hit the brake and long sound of dirt, being, mixed up. And I was going fast enough to where it took a while for that bike to stop. And anyways, I had about a 10-foot, 15-foot slide. And whenever I'm sliding, the bear and the moose, they turn and they look at me. And then at 7 years old, I thought, this is it. This is how I die. I'm gonna die right now. And I kept thinking in my mind about my dad killing the bear. And I thought, well, it took him these shots to kill the bear. I'm not gonna make it. And my oldest brother was on a bicycle, and he happened to be coming down the same way I was going. And he came down to the hill, and he saw what was happening. and he grabbed me by the shirt and picked me up and put me on the handlebars. And he said, hold on for dear life. I can still feel the bar on the back of my leg, not on my butt, but the back of my leg. I still feel it to this day, thinking about it, because it's imprinted into my mind about me holding on for dear life. And I remember holding on, and I was trying to balance myself by leaning forward and leaning back and not falling off the bike. And I didn't look back because I knew if I did, I'd fall. So I just kept focusing on trying to hold on. My brother just rode as hard as he could to the top of the hill. So we get to the top of the hill. Okay, I just got done teaching for the past hour and a half, 2 hours. So I have a break right now, so I'm gonna continue with my video. Back whenever I was 7, 8 years old, after that bear incident, my parents, they realized that it was a dangerous area, so they still had us walk from that house to the bus stop, which was a mile away. And I had to walk from that bus stop from age 8 to about age 11 when my parents got divorced. Was I scared of walking that every day? You better believe it. Because I understand wintertime bears don't come out, but my dad killed a bear in the wintertime. So I was naturally afraid of having to walk to school and walk home from school. And it was constant living in fear. So I would go to school and I would get picked on the playground, pushed down, shoved, picked last for games, all the things you can think of that would happen to a kid in elementary school. For the most part, I went through. Not everything, but a lot. And as I got older, it got worse, like I was saying. I stepped into martial arts around age 7, age 8. I visited with a friend in the school. Then after that, I didn't get too serious about it. And anyways, so back to that story, because growing up in that small town, it was really tough. A lot of the parents, they work in the oil field, and they only see their dads every once, maybe twice, 2 weeks out of the month. So with that being the case, a lot of these kids didn't have a lot of attention. But regardless, if those bullies didn't bully me and my parents didn't get divorced, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that the circumstances you go through in your life, they have a way of shaping you and molding you, and you don't know what the future's going to hold, but if you just keep focusing on the positive and trying to push forward through those boundaries, you're going to be okay. So let's go a little bit more about my childhood. So when I got to junior high, I would do things to try to make people laugh. So for Halloween, I dressed up as a pregnant lady. I won the funniest costume that year. But that didn't really win me friends. And when my parents got divorced, we moved into town, in that small town. I lived in the house for 1 year. And then we moved back out way past where I already had been growing up. And that's a place called Sterling, Alaska. So around age 12 and a half to about 14 and a half years old, I was living out there in those woods again. And I still had to walk in almost 2 feet of snow one time to go to the bus stop, and this bus still came. And that's just Alaska for you. I was upset that day. I was like, come on. Any other place in America, you would get the time off for school. But I can't get time off because it's 23 inches in 24 hours when it had to be 24 inches in 24 hours. It's a rule that they have. I think it's a dumb rule. But anyways, I went to school, and but things happened all the time to me. And I was in journalism as well in junior high. I picked that up because I thought it'd be fun to do journalism. And I could lay out the newspaper on a computer. And this was back in early 90s. And so what happened was this: my mom met a guy at the time, and she thought she was in love with him. And he taught me how to do some things like shoot a gun and all that kind of stuff. But the problem was he was never going to marry her. And my mom gave me a 3-day heads up about moving. And so any friends I did have, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And 3 days later, after my mom told me that, we actually did move. We moved in the middle of the night to Anchorage. And that move saved my life because I was suicidal at that point. I remember cutting wood. I'd have to cut wood all the time for the cabin I lived in. I had to cut the wood because otherwise we wouldn't have heat. We didn't have central heat and air in this cabin. It was really, really basic. So basic that when you walked into this cabin, and so I went from doing really well with my parents into going on welfare. So when my parents were divorced at age 11, I went on welfare from age 11 to 18. So part of that process was being in this cabin, which you could see the floor. You could literally see the dirt floor. You had plywood on the floor, and you could look over by the stove, right, where you heat the place, and you could see the floor below it, the dirt floor. And that was my reality. And it wasn't really easy because people knew you were poor, so you got picked on for that. Anyways, in the middle of the night, we moved to Anchorage. And on the way there, I asked my mom on the drive, I said, Mom, do I have to go by Bucky anymore? And she goes, no, you don't have to go by that anymore. You can use your first name. And I thought, let's see them rhyme something with Corey. Now you know about my middle school and my grammar school past and everything that happened after the bear. And real quick, when I was 7, I also had another bear incident. I went swimming with some friends. I wasn't really good swimmer. I was learning how to swim at the time. And my brother, we're out in this raft. It was styrofoam. And my brother was trying to find me. He just was going everywhere, and I didn't tell him where I was going. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just told my friends where I was gonna go with them. I guess I watched Stand By Me at the time, so I decided to just run off like them. So I get to the lake, and we're out in this styrofoam raft, and my brother comes out and sees me, and he looks across the way, and he says, "Bear!" We look over, and there's a bear. And we paddled for our life to get across the lake, and we got back, and what you do is when you see a bear, you don't run because they think you're a toy. They think you're trying to play with them a little bit, or they could just be hungry. So what I did was, when I saw the bear, when I got to the land, and I kept my eye on the bear, I walked away from the bear. I didn't run, I just walked. And when I crested over the first hill, that's when I ran. I ran all the way home. My lungs were burning like they were on fire more than any other time because I was fearful, incredibly fearful of dying from a bear attack. Can anyone relate to this at all?